Hi, in this session I'm going to show you how to create a basic amortization schedule or table. So let's say, for example, you've got a mortgage and your mortgage is for 30 years, you have an interest rate of 3%, and you have a principal of $250,000. That's what you're going to borrow. And let's say we want to create a table that tells us how much interest we'll be paying per month, how much is the interest paid, what's our balance going to be at the end of that month, and it will span the lifetime of that loan. So this is 30 years at 12 months per year, 12 periods in a year. If we do the control down arrow, we'll get to the very bottom in the 360 period, which is going to be, in this case, December 1st, 2044. That's when we'll have our zero balance. And it kind of tells us what is going to be our interest and our principals that are going to go into that mortgage every year. So if you notice, these particular columns, D and E, for each of the rows, they would add up to the principal and interest monthly payment, $1054.01. So they always will add up. If I go anywhere in here, they're always going to add up. Principal and payment for that month always adds up to that particular amount here. So how do we get this payment amount? Let me go ahead, this is the formula here, but let me go ahead and step through how we would build this particular table here, this function here, and how we build the table out here. Let me go to the next sheet here, but before that, let me just copy these things here. We'll go ahead and Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste. Let me go ahead and double click this to increase the size there. Let me go ahead and increase the size here too. And then let me add these headers here. Control C to copy, and then Control C to paste, Control V to paste. Oh, let me go ahead and let me select these columns and make them auto fit. See, the text is kind of cut off here. So if I just double click any of these grid lines here, it will auto fit it here if I double clicked up there. So what I want to do is, this will be my inputs. So we know our years, the number of years. Let's say it's 30, it's a 30-year loan. Their interest rate, let's say it's a 3% interest, 3 and then percentage sign. And the principal, this is how much I want to borrow. Let's say we want to borrow $100,000. Okay, and what is the payment? Well, this is actually going to be a formula, and what it's going to use the PMT function. So the PMT function will calculate the payment on the loan. You can read the definition here, what it does. And it takes 4 arguments, really just actually 3 required arguments and 2 optional arguments here. So it's going to take the rate, which is our interest rate here. But this is a rate for years, and what we want to do is we want to figure out monthly rates. So we have to divide this by 12. So we just had to put a divisor and 12 here, and then comma, and what our period is. And since this is years and we're figuring out for months, we're going to have to multiply it by 12 months out of the year. So what I'm going to do is include that one, but multiply it by 12. And the present value is the current value that I want to take out, and it's going to be this principal payment. And then the future value is 0. So we want to get down to when the end of our term of our loan, we will have 0. The future value will be 0. And the type, usually with the type, it's talking about will you do the payment at the beginning of the period or the end of the period. I believe that since if we don't type anything in, it'll go ahead and take the end of the period as the default. So to check that, I can go ahead and just click on the insert function command here, and if we go into the type here, it will tell us that it's going to be 0. Yes, the payment at the end of the period, 0 or omit it. So we're going to omit it, so it's going to be 0 by default then. So if I click OK, what we're going to see here is we're going to have a payment of $421.60. And the reason why it's in red and in parentheses is if you think about it in the concept of you're going to have money taken out of your pocket, and that's why it is negative with these parentheses. But for our sake, we want to kind of just indicate, don't want to show any positive or negative because it's going to help us out later on the calculation down here. So I'm just going to put a minus sign out here. So what the minus sign out there does is it'll just negate the negative, the parentheses. So if I press enter, it's going to just put 421. So that gives us our payment. So every month we're going to pay $421.60. Now I'm going to build out the amortization table here. And I'm going to start with period 0. When do we take out our loan? And the new balance is going to equal this. All right, and now we're really going to start here. So each period I want it to increment. So an easy way to do this is just increment it by putting a calculation function, adding 1 to everything. So I'm going to go ahead and equal this cell plus 1. And when I copy it down to how many periods I want to copy down, it's always going to increase it. So let's say that I want 30 years. So I'm just going ahead and bring it down. You can see that it's executing that formula as I copy it down. And I'm going to bring it down to 30. Let me see. Let me see how far down I need to go. I believe this will take me there, almost there. 30 is 360. So 30 times 12, 360 months. So let's go down to, I think, probably around here. Yeah, almost there. 3 more cells. So once we have that laid out, let me go ahead and go back to the top. I can just press Control Home button. It's going to take me back to the top here. And what I want to do is indicate the month. So let's say this particular one is the month when it started. So we're going to figure out, like, when are we going to start paying for when is our first payment? And just work behind there. So we're going to imagine that our first payment is going to be January 1st, 2014. So we're going to go back a month here. We're going to make this 12/1/2014. That's when we started. In effect, that's when we will start that loan in that month, the first day of that when that month started. And if we wanted to increment it here, what we can do is use another function. It's called the eDate function. What it does, it increases it every month. So we go ahead and use eDate. Our start date is here, and we're going to increase it by 1 month. And I'm going to close parentheses. And it's going to bring back this number. And the way that Excel sees dates is based on a serial number. Let me go ahead and just fill out the formula first. I'm going to go ahead and double click it to copy the formula down. And you can see that it's all these serial numbers. And what I can do is I can select this, Control Shift down arrow, and I'm going to go up here. I'm going to, in the Home tab, in the numbers grouping, I'm going to go ahead and just select short date. So now it's going to give me a date. So now it's going to see that, whoops, I made this 2014. Let's make this 2013 because we're in the year 2014. So I'm going to see 1/1/2014, 2/1/2014, 3/1/2014. So that is going to be my increment of the date. So we're assuming that every month on the 1st we're going to pay our mortgage off, or pay a portion of our mortgage. So let's work on the balance. Okay, so for our first month balance, it's going to take from the beginning balance. I'm going to press equal and the new balance there. Now for the interest, what we want to do is we want to multiply the balance times the interest rate. So I'm going to put equal this balance times this interest rate and divide it by 12, because that's yearly interest rate right now, and I want to look for the monthly interest rate. So we divide that by 12. Also, I want to put these in parentheses. I want to make sure that this gets calculated first. Now also a note on the interest rate. You need to put this as an absolute cell reference. So basically I'm going to go and click in there and press the F4 key. And so what happens is it puts dollar signs in front of these two values, and when I copy it down, those values won't change, because what happens when I copy it down, the value may change to B3, B4, B5, but I want to keep it to B2, always referencing this particular cell. I'm going to press Control Enter to stay in that cell, and we have our interest at $250. And the principal paid, basically it's going to equal this amount, which includes principal and interest minus just the interest. So I want to figure out what is the principal, only the principal paid. And for the B4, I want to do the same thing. I want it to be an absolute cell reference. And so I'll press the F4 key, because when I copy down, I want it to always reference that in the calculation. D9, I don't need to worry about, because I always want it to calculate the next cell down. So I'll press Control Enter. We got 171.60, and then our new balance is going to equal basically the balance of the month minus the principal that was paid that month. So I have that value. Now let's put some dollar signs out of the rest of these cells. Let me go ahead and just click here and add the currency. And now I can go ahead and select this and double click it to copy it all down. So now I have my amortization schedule. So if I look to the very bottom, I can see that by the 360 month, by the end of the term, I will be paying $420.55. Now I'm going to go ahead and double check this to make sure that this is done right. Let's go back to our value here. We had 33%, $250,000. Let's make that 33%, $250,000. So I have 105,401, 105,401, and the last payment here, of course, was 105,138. And let's look at the bottom here, 105,138. So that is our amortization schedule. So this is a pretty basic amortization schedule you can put together in Excel, and it'll kind of give you an idea of like how much you need to pay per month, what's the interest that you need to pay, and what's the principal that's going to be paid for each of the months that the term is for. So I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.